And then later, when we can like capture this market and stuff, then we can think about more end user facing applications. And the goal here is really to, like, the end goal is that we enable anyone in the world to really build sophisticated automated strategies themselves and have them executed. Basically, everyone has the same tools like in the future, and everyone can. It's just, you just have to do your research, and if you do it well, then you can get your chances. Kind of leveling the playing field.
Welcome to Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel, where we explore projects in decentralized finance that are innovating and driving our mission of financial freedom forward. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review Mission DeFi and spread the word by posting a tweet to the show. All opinions expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests are their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Black Knox, Material Indicators, or any other affiliated organizations. You should not treat any opinion expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests as an inducement to make a particular investment, follow a particular strategy, or become involved with any project. A project being featured on the show is not an endorsement of that project in any way. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Now, here's Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel.
So I am excited today to have Hilmar Orth, and Hilmar is from a project I'm really fascinated with, Gelato Network, for a number of reasons. I have our own motivation as a company because I think it actually could solve some real problems for us with our trading tools in DeFi. I also am very excited because I think this project and the technology they've developed opens up a lot of doors for a lot of projects for things that they may not have realized they could do, because it solves a problem that everyone thinks is not necessarily solvable. And I'm going to let Hilmar tell us what that problem is and how they came about. But first, I'd like him to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about where he's from, what he's doing, and how he got into crypto.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for having me on, first of all. Super excited to be here. Yeah, and my name is Hilmar. I'm originally from Germany and been into crypto since 2016, roughly when the first DAO was launched on Ethereum. This kind of like got me excited, and I was interested in the space anyways. I studied finance as an undergrad and somehow got kind of like hooked on crypto, and I went down the rabbit hole during that time. And yeah, with a friend of mine, Louis, who I also co-founded Gelato together with later, we were kind of like busy in 2017 to 2018, helping kind of like large German institutional companies experiment with blockchain technology and Ethereum and etc. And this is kind of like where we developed a lot of expertise and got into the space more as like, and later we ended up leaving that company and then started hacking more on like public Ethereum projects. Went to a bunch of hackathons, and yeah, and then out of one of these projects that we did afterwards, Gelato kind of like emerged naturally as kind of like one missing infrastructure piece that we were kind of missing ourselves as Web3 developers. And this is where we ended up with Gelato, basically.
Excellent. So when you were a finance undergrad, did you expect you'd be working for some big Goldman Sachs or other?
I actually did, like, I just was fascinated with it. I loved also to trade. Like when I was doing my first internships at KPMG and stuff, I literally, every time they didn't look at my screen, I was putting all down. Like I was switching to the charts, and I was burning through all my money that I had. I lost most of it. Like I did like high risk option trading when I was like 15 and stuff.
Wow.
And like not like completely crazy, but I burned through a lot of money back then. Not a lot of money for me. It was a lot of money back then.
Sure.
Thousands, basically. But I learned some good lessons back then quite early with only a bit of money. And then, yeah, that spurred my interest. And then like this whole crypto investing was much more exciting afterward. But I never thought, like, it was clear to my first finance class that I can't work on these banks. Like it was like crystal clear to me. And I didn't know what to do with it later, to be honest. And then suddenly crypto emerged. And then I was like, oh, god damn, luckily this exists. And then I could actually use my educational skills and apply them.
That's great. So you really kind of feel like you didn't fit there, but you didn't know where that was going to be, but crypto was there for you. And I love that you got the painful risk lessons out of the way at 15 with a couple of grand instead of like the rest of us, when we decide to dive in and have no clue what we're doing. But everybody has to go through those lessons. So so you guys were out consulting, trying to help traditional finance and other companies take advantage of blockchain and figure out how to implement it. And that was actually something I think is happening more now in the background. But at the time, 2017, 2018, that was actually that was one of the big kind of messages that people were trying to do. There was this whole message of, well, don't worry about crypto. It's the blockchain that's important, right? And I think there was some realization that there needed to be some growth in what the tech could do and in order for people to understand outside of kind of tokens and crypto, how they could utilize it in their companies. And so then you were doing hackathons and working on projects, and one of the problems you needed solved, you you kind of came up with Gelato to solve. So can you give us an idea of what that problem was and how and what Gelato came out as?
Yeah, sure. So like there is this project called Gnosis. They are doing decentralized exchanges and prediction markets. They are also partly based in Berlin, and this is where we were located at that time. And we got to know these guys, and then we started doing a project for them that's basically like they built a decentralized exchange called the DutchX that was doing in a completely decentralized fashion on Ethereum. Super cool. And it was basically the exchange that could fill the largest orders at that time. And like DEXs were super small, and you could basically sell like $1 million over a period of 6 hours, basically, on that exchange. It was pretty innovative. And yeah, we were basically tasked to help projects to automatically place market orders or start these auctions in a repeating fashion every one day, or like every day or every couple of days, so that you can say, hey, I can raise some funds potentially by just like selling my tokens in an auction process over a period of like a month or 2 months to the public, rather than doing like one crazy ICO where everyone has to get in the first with the highest gas price, basically. And when we were building that, we realized, okay, this like as soon as you go into doing something recurringly or doing something, executing transactions conditionally, not now, but some point in the future, let's say every day, or if prices change, or if interest rates change, then you require an external impulse to actually execute that transaction on your behalf. Because in crypto, you own your keys, you own your wallet, and only you can execute like trades, for example, on your behalf, right? If you are not online and you don't click on MetaMask and do the transaction, nothing will happen. Your funds will remain in your wallet. And that's good, right? It should be that.
Of course.
That also means that like the kind of like more automative user experiences that you're used to from traditional finance or banks to some extent are not there yet. And basically what projects in the past did is they all had to kind of like build up their custom servers, their custom bots run this infrastructure and basically monitor everything that's going on, like monitor that a day has passed, and then on behalf of the users, execute that transaction on Ethereum, right? And basically every project has to build it up from scratch every single time. They have to run it, maintain it. It is a lot of work. And we basically had to do that. We're like crazy that there's no service that just has this external server or network of like a decentralized network of bots that you can just plug into that does that for you, right? Because we were building it up. It took us a long time to do so. And then what we ended up with is just like one server that we, two guys sitting in a basement, were running. And like, if this server goes down, like the whole application goes down. This decentralized application is like super centralized. And yeah, they're just like, hey, like this auction, like everyday auction product is like one basic use case, but there are like thousands or millions of them. If you think about all these recurring processes that happen in traditional finance all over the time, yeah, this piece was just missing. And so we decided, hey, rather than kind of like continuing to build on that, we went to Gnosis. They have nice resources, luckily, and we told them, hey, we would rather just solve this problem for all of crypto, basically build the infrastructure that automates any smart contracts on any blockchains in Web3, so to say. And they said, hey, they liked us. They gave us grants so we finance our development, and we bootstrapped for like for a year roughly, and built the first prototype, acquired the first customers, and then we got the investor funding, and now we're here. One of a lot of the projects that are like the most widely used projects in Ethereum are using us on a day-to-day basis. We have MakerDAO that just integrated us. We have instadapp. We have Zerion. We have QuickSwap on Polygon. So like a lot of big projects are using our infrastructure these days to facilitate thousands of transactions every day. So yeah.
That's great. So essentially what Gelato does is it allows developers creating smart contracts to create automations that would normally have required either the infrastructure and monitoring that you talked about by developers who've created other smart contracts that are interacting with those recurring transactions, and or the user to authorize something in their wallet every time it happened, right? So if you were automating something that happened every hour or every 6 hours, essentially the user would have to be there to authorize those transactions, or the developers would have to do that. Can you give us an idea of kind of at a high level how Gelato does this, right? So how do you overcome the built-in structural blocks to what you're trying to do with Gelato?
So basically what we did with Gelato is we built a client that can be run in a distributed fashion, that is built in such a way that it accepts arbitrary tasks or jobs that anyone in the world, any developer can just like build or create. And you can just submit, what you can do is you can go to Gelato and say, hey, please, every 5 hours, call this particular function on Ethereum. And this particular function, what it does is just basic example. It just transfers $1,000 out of your wallet and sends it to your mother, for example. Okay. And you just have to tell Gelato the condition it has to follow, please, every 24 hours. And then the action it has to execute, which is transfer the money to my mother. And then Gelato will just do it.
Right. And so the user, in the case of a user, the user has to pre-authorize the contract to take those steps, right?
Yeah.
And so you're saying to the contract, look, I agree that you will take the $1,000 out of my wallet and transfer it to my mother until I tell you to stop, or something that might be built into the interface to tell me when you should stop. Do this for a month, do this for 6 months, whatever. Okay. And then from the functional perspective of Gelato, how does Gelato exist? Is this existing as a decentralized service, or is it existing as functions on a centralized kind of, centralized is a strong term. You know what I mean? Is it operating in a data center, and so it's just executing functions, or does it actually exist on chain as smart contracts and function?
Both.
Okay.
It's part of the protocol is on chain, but the big chunk is basically off chain in these clients. And you can think about it like Gelato is kind of like an adjacent layer to all these blockchains that basically you can use to automate transactions within them, but soon, and this is kind of like the grand vision of Gelato, across them. So you can just say, hey, based on a transaction on Bitcoin, or let's say based on transaction on Cardano or whatever you want to take, please execute that trade on Ethereum and then move my funds over to here. And basically we come to the glue between these networks that conditionally executes transactions across, and it exists on chain in a smart contract where a lot of rules are enforced, because basically the bots always have to act in the best interest of the users. They have to charge a fee to the users. How much they can charge is all kind of like created and calculated on chain. So we make sure that's actually safe and secure. And the guarantees that everything is secure is done in the smart contract. So it's completely non-custodial. The bots are never in control of your money or something.
Right.
They all just they just execute transactions and they move the money in between, but they never have access to it.
Right.
And then on the client side, this is where most of the problems are which have to be solved, because there you have like 1,000 transactions that all need to be executed at the same time without blocking each other, without reverting in between. Like this goes into like the technicalities, but like to build a really scalable infrastructure that gets a lot of transactions mined in a short period of time is non-trivial.
Sure.
And this is kind of like the client work that we're doing now.
Okay. And so developers are utilizing your tools to build and think about all of those protocols, but is this also something you guys are trying to separate out to let them do this more easily, right? I guess the question is are you pre-packaging functions on existing Legos in the DeFi world that people can utilize for automation?
Yeah. So we started off like building just the tools and the building blocks so that developers can just like easily combine all of the stuff themselves, and we don't prepackage anything.
Nice.
Turns out developers want to have prepackaged stuff because they're lazy. And so we kind of like went back again, and then we basically said, okay, what are kind of like the top three most widely used use cases in DeFi that require automation? And then we basically identified, first of all, conditional automated trading, limit orders, etc., on decentralized exchanges. Then liquidation protection on lending protocols, basically managing your borrowing position, refinancing your borrowing positions, refinancing your lending positions. And then liquidity provision management on protocols like Uniswap, where you basically do market making. And we help you to effectively do market making in a highly concentrated manner. And basically we build kind of like pre-built functions that are plugged into our infrastructure and are automated out of the box that developers can plug into, which make it super easy. But at the same time, further developing our more like generalistic tooling, where any developer in the world can just come there without like having to talk to us or anyone, and just say, hey, I want to automate this function. I want to get it executed when this happens, and then it just happens. And so both at the same time, you just have to balance them out a bit. But yeah, like we have both.
Okay, this is going to probably carry it a little too far, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you envision this being something where eventually there's an interface for an end user to grab and, in a drag and drop fashion, grabbing pieces of functionality
Yeah.
for investments that they want to automate?
Yeah, funny because like this is actually the first prototype we had was
Really?
end user. This you probably know Zapier
Sure.
or IFTT, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think the first article, if you Google Gelato IFTT or something, the first article it was like the first article written about us, I think, and it was like the IFTT for crypto. And we built an interface which was like I built it myself, and I'm a really like I don't do front ends well, but basically we had like three conditions you can choose from, like prices on Uniswap, the time, and interest rates, I think, and then three actions that you could basically execute conditionally when these conditions are fulfilled. And so, and then recurrently like Zapier does. And yeah, we started with that. That actually got us the initial hype, but we realized that it's not at the moment, crypto is not mature enough that you start with that, because how many end users are there that really want to automate like sophisticated stuff?
Right.
Not that many, a couple, but this is not a big enough market, right?
Right.
So we said, okay, let's focus on actually, which is much easier for us developers that will integrate us natively into their protocol, basically be like an AWS for them. They can outsource all of the DevOps to us, and they just have to care about their smart contracts. And then later, when we can like capture this market and stuff, then we can think about more end user facing applications. And the goal here is really to like, the end goal is that we enable anyone in the world to really build sophisticated automated strategies themselves and have them executed. Basically, everyone has the same tools like in the future, and everyone can. It's just you just have to do your research, and if you do it well, then you can get your chances. Kind of leveling the playing field. And but this will still take years until we get there, unfortunately.
Well, I could certainly, being in the trading algorithm world, I can definitely see like a marketplace model for people who are building automations and a whole bunch of other stuff. I can see the power of this. And it's one of the first things that came into my mind as you were describing how the system functions. How are you guys making money?
Yeah. So making money is basically running these clients that are executing transactions. Every transaction is executed. These bots earn a fee. The fee is different on layer twos compared to like mainnet, for example. Mainnet transactions are very expensive. Sometimes they cost like $2,000, like $2,000 for one transaction. It's crazy. Sometimes even more, usually around like $80, I would say. And basically the bots have like a 10% premium on top. So if the transaction costs $80, they make $8. On layer twos at the moment, we have like a fixed fee. But so first of all, this is the revenue model. So if you run these bots, then you generate revenue. We run some of these bots ourselves at the moment, so we earn some revenue. But like the revenue potential here is like the potential untapped revenue potential of something like Gelato is really huge, because you basically, what we sell, or what Gelato as a protocol sells to these bots, is the exclusive access to certain times on Ethereum, for example, to execute some transactions. And transactions are not only like the value that lies within that right is not only the fee that you earn that is predefined or based on the current transaction fees, but it's actually the opportunities that lie around it. For example, if you execute a trade, if you execute a limit order, like one of our mostly widely used features is limit orders on Uniswap or QuickSwap. And if you execute a limit order, then right after that, depending on the order size, there's this huge arbitrage opportunity that arises. And the first one that gets there can have quite the significant gain, right? And if you have exclusive right to execute that trade at that time, then you have the power to put a transaction behind that and then back run that transaction and exploit that moment in time. And basically what Gelato does, it reserves that moment in time to a specific bot, and this can like vary in value quite a bit. And this is like, there's a lot of untapped revenue to be made in these circumstances. And yeah, this is where I see like future revenue probably being generated.
Oh man, I can definitely see the incentive for, and I'm not saying they're doing this, I can definitely see the incentive for folks like QuickSwap and other exchanges just in that simple use case. But then the potential from the perspective, multiple transaction types happening in a combined bot open up a lot of doors. That's fascinating. Okay, cool. So you guys are essentially you're making money on the usage on the markup on bots that you provide, but are you also making, so if I came in to set up some kind of automated transaction using Gelato, would you be charging me a percentage of what I'm charging the customers out of the fees? Or you would just be charging me a flat fee?
Depends on it. Like, as I said, depends on the network. So if you're, let's say, on Ethereum, then if you, for example, payment wise, it's two different models usually. Either like our users are the developers, and then we are kind of like B2C, and then these developers have customers, right?
Right.
Either the developers just pay for it and they get their fees otherwise.
Okay.
They can actually build a system in such a way that's, for example, how instadapp did it. What they do is they offer debt refinancing between protocols to avoid liquidation. Let's say you want to, MakerDAO, you want to refinance Compound because they have a lower collateralization requirement. And then when each price drops, you don't get liquidated. Right. And you don't have to pay like a 13% penalty or whatever. And what they basically do is they let the user refinance, and then they mint some more, or they get some more debt on top of that position after the transaction has been successful, and they use that to pay Gelato. So there, the user kind of like directly pays Gelato, but if within the transaction, whereas with others, it's usually two separate things. You pay Gelato, and then the user pays you, and then you run a business model. And if that is profitable, then you're profitable.
That's cool. I got to believe that as people come to you with use cases, some of them are just kind of standard things that you guys seen over and over again. I want to institute limit orders. Is Matcha using Gelato for their limit orders?
So Matcha is a separate network that is focused for like usual like order executions, right? They have been also around for quite some time. They have their own custom way of doing things.
Okay.
Side messages.
Yeah.
1inch also has a custom one. I would say on the layer 2s, we're probably, especially Polygon Phantom, the most widely adopted one there.
I believe it.
But I mean it. I think Matcha is still more.
Yeah. Are there projects that are bridging at the same time using Gelato? Are they taking transactions that happen on Polygon, bridging over into mainnet, and then doing something else on mainnet, like automating a yield farming play or staking or something? Yeah.
So, for example, instadapp, what they use Gelato for is they are automatically transitioning other positions from mainnet to Polygon because theirs much cheaper, and they can also with Gelato run like liquidation protection schemes.
Right.
That like every time there's like the collateral drops, you repay parts of it slowly in order to kind of like have the same collateralization ratio. And yeah, basically how that works is users are sending funds from mainnet into a bridge contract. Then the relays of that bridge moving these assets, they're basically locking the assets C on mainnet and then unlocking them on let's say Polygon, and then someone else needs to come in here and then move the funds again to the user's wallets or like in the contracts that are specific for instadapp from the user. And this is basically what Gelato is doing. So they're using basically Gelato to cross-chain move funds automatically. And the user just has to do one click on mainnet, and then on Polygon, all the transactions are sent by Gelato basically.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. It's interesting because I often talk about the fact that I think that eventually users won't know what layer they're on or what blockchain they're on, right? That they will just be transacting through their wallet interface, the things they want to do or they want to automate. And it sounds to me like Gelato can be a real gateway for that kind of functionality. Do you have anybody looking at this as just like for something as simple as subscription management in crypto?
Yeah, actually, project recently integrated Gelato called, like, this is not, it's kind of like subscription. It's salary payments, so like monthly payments basically, right?
Sure.
Subscription, monthly payments, all the same at the end of the day. And Parcel.money, cool project. They focus on like DAOs, like everyone has a DAO these days. And they allow DAOs or multi-sigs, so people like shared accounts on Ethereum. Sure. They allow them to, usually what you have to do if you have multiple parties, like a trust, right? You have multiple parties and they all have to sign off transactions. Right. Then you can execute them, right? Same in the real world with company accounts maybe. And the pain here is if you have 30 employees and you need to meet once a month to sign 30 messages on Ethereum, which is still a bit clunky. It like, usually for us, it took like 3 hours to do it, to get it completed. It's a nightmare. And then basically what you can do with them, you just have to set it up once. And then Gelato basically every month just gets the wallet, takes out the amount, and it can only take out that amount and then transfers it. So it's basically subscriptions, but the use case specifically for that is salaries, but it can be applied to whatever.
No, I could definitely see it like treasury management, treasury investing, being able to, if the treasury is invested in a specific set of tokens or protocols or yield farms and something goes wrong, prices plummeting, trying to get 6 people together to sign a transaction is a nightmare. But you could theoretically automate the trading of your treasury and have everyone agree to that once. And then whatever it is, staking, yield farming, selling, whatever the transactions are, you can set those rules up in advance. I guess it gets a bit complex sometimes too. I'm sure that thinking through all the parameters and possibilities can be a difficult part of keeping this whole thing secure. Do you guys often have to when you're working with clients, are you doing a lot of dev work for them as well? Or is this something you're just handing to them, or you guys are actually doing some of that as well in-house?
Yeah, we are very hands-on. So we help the clients because we've been like automating stuff on Ethereum now for like over 2 years, and the devil is in the detail. Yeah, as always with smart contracts, and there you just have to make sure that it's secure, parameters are set, the data is correctly defined. So, and that's why hey, we build just the tools and then everyone just builds on top and it goes through the roof. At the beginning, it's just unrealistic because having the skill set to really make secure systems in this space is still very scarce. Sure. And so that's why we are very hands-on with everyone and help them. Some of our customers are super like crazy experts, like MakerDAO, for example, right? They know exactly what's secure much better than we do even. And then there are other customers that need a bit more help and say, hey guys, I wouldn't do it that way. It works, but you get front run, you get sandwich attack to MEV gets attracted. Please set the slippage parameter and pass it off chain and stuff. So there are small details basically.
Well, that's great. I mean, obviously that means you guys have to scale your team pretty significantly as time goes by, because as more adoption happens, you're going to need to be able to help more people. But I actually think what we were talking about earlier, where you're building modules to kind of think about these things in advance and people could pick them off the shelf and implement them into their code, allows you to kind of say those things, already have those things pre-built in.
Yeah. And this is like, at the moment, it's hands-on, but we already see more and more customers coming in and they just get hooked up right away and they just use the existing building blocks and they don't even have to talk to others anymore. But like, it always depends on the use case. If it's like a crazy complex use case, then like the stuff just doesn't work out of the box, unfortunately, for now.
Sure. No, but I could definitely envision people actually building their own products out of what you guys are creating and putting into the library And I see a lot of opportunities there. It's actually pretty exciting. Have there been use cases where you were just like, I mean, you don't have to name any names, but where you just thought, this is nuts, and then maybe they worked out to be a good idea? I mean, have there been instances like that where people are coming to you just saying, you know,
Yeah, they're like they were funny ones. So, like when I was Gelato, I really like because I'm into finance and stuff, and when I went to the hackathons, I built like interest rate refinancing or interest rate swaps or stuff like that, and I always automated stuff like that. And this is what I thought Gelato will be used for the most, right? They're like, hey, people will do like automatically exercising options and future contracts and everything that happens in the future. And there's some exercising going on, right?
right,
This is also like people are talking about it, and we're helping people get up to speed with those. But then like the other day, and this is one of the most widely not anymore, but it used to be one of the most widely used applications for that uses Gelato and Polygon, which is there's this thing called Avogotchis. These are like they're NFTs. They're like these pet ghosts. And if you know Tamagotchis, they were these little pets that you had as a child when like you were my age, and you had to take care of them. Right. If you don't pet them, at least once a day, they get sad, and at some point they die. And someone took that concept and made an NFT and put like a loan into it. I actually don't know. But like you have to pet these guys every 12 hours. And so someone built like a service that automatically pets these creatures every 12 hours. And they basically do that with Gelato. And Sunday I like just saw a lot of transactions going like, what is this? And then yeah, it was petting of Avagotchis powered by Gelato. And that's
that's
what people are actually
awesome.
building.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you know, you envision all these complex financial transactions, and then it's petting Avogachis. That's hilarious. Well, look, you know, somebody wants it, somebody will pay for it. That's great.
And they are paying good money for it. That's great.
I believe it. That's crazy. Just crazy. Where do you envision? I don't want to do where do you think you'll be in 5 years? But I mean, where do you envision Gelato kind of going from here? We talked about kind of the automated interface for end users potentially. I could see an similar automated interface for drag and drop for developers that they can then bolt into what they're building. Where do you guys think you're going to be in the next few years, and what would you like Gelato to be?
Yeah. So of course, what I really like Cloud to be is this one place where everyone can go to create the most sophisticated automated financial strategies with the least amount of code possible. Basically, leveling the playing field for everyone. Every kid somewhere can just go out and go crazy and create some profit and create some sophisticated venture products. But practically speaking, where I see this heading at the moment, at least, but things change obviously, is similar. Like it's Gelato will probably, well, it's hard to say, but it looks like Gelato will more likely become more like an infrastructure developer facing building blocks, very similar to Google Cloud Functions or AWS Lambda, basically Web3 cloud functions for not only DeFi, but Web3 gaming. Like every process is a transaction on these blockchains, and 99% of these transactions won't be like initiated by users clicking buttons. They are happening in the background in games, starting races, finishing races, updating leaderboards, all of that stuff. And then of course on social. And basically Gelato, if these people still want to build decentralized applications, right, then they will require a decentralized, reliable infrastructure to automate their processes happening. And this is then Gelato is more like this on-chain bot API that every developer can plug into, rather than like an end phaser using products. So I think it will probably more likely move into that area.
That's very interesting. Well, I certainly think others could build that original vision on top of what you've built, but
Yeah.
I can certainly, I think from the perspective of if I were in your shoes, I'd really still want to be able to build that, right? Because I think that's powerful. Um, and it's nice to know that you're actually, you can build something that end users can take advantage of, right? It may be I think right now it's way too complex for them to deal with, but I definitely can see the potential as that. In that regard, is anybody utilizing Gelato kind of in a data gathering, machine learning, artificial intelligence way where it's not only authorizing transactions, but it's actually testing strategies in the financial world, and then utilizing that to automate after the fact. And I don't even know if that makes sense, but the idea that you set up some parameters of things that you want to test and you test them, and then utilizing the data that you gathered from those tests to actually go ahead and automate the Gelato contracts without you having to go back and automate them.
So I think the process would be you set initial parameters, and a good use case, because like we build stuff like that in house as well, is liquidity management. So like market making on AMMs, market making on decentralized exchanges, highly complex topic. Uniswap v3, like crazy complex, and there you need something like this to really outperform the market. Basically, what you can do is, or how this would work with Gelato, I'm like, this is not being done right now.
Okay.
But it would be pretty dope, is you set some parameters like, hey, I want to monitor the volatility of a trading pair on Uniswap v3. I set the price at the moment is like 100. I want to set a range. I want to provide deep liquidity around 5% down and up. And based on changing and then define parameters, please monitor the volatility, monitor the time weighted average price, monitor buys and sells or whatever. And then based on like them changing to a certain extent, please widen or contract that range, or move and follow that price and rebalance your position, your inventory back and forth. And then you could have a machine learning algorithm that is, but it should be all somewhere in the server, but then that basically analyzes your permanent loss, your gain, your fees earned, your profit at the end of the day. And then it could just, without having to like transact on chain, it could just like change these parameters on the fly based on these learnings, and then gather other data, right? And so Gelato could be used as this execute, like Gelato just keeps on doing its job, but like you could have like a separate module that then on the fly, because if you preset parameters, then they won't change unless you do so. So you can have like another layer that then actually goes there and changes these parameters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this will be crazy. And this is how it will be. I bet you that it will happen. It's probably already happening behind closed doors, but no one works with us together on this yet, even though I would be interested. And we have some like machine learning PhDs in our team that are probably interested in that. But yeah, we are focusing on other stuff right now.
Sure. No, I get it. I was thinking about it from my own selfish perspective. I was thinking about, the potential of monitoring, 50 chosen pairs in a given exchange for the right volumes and volatility for the kinds of trades that I want to do, perhaps, and altering and changing that, but not having to do it manually, having Gelato actually do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, that's cool. All right. Okay. So we've talked about the big vision. We talked about the big picture. Anything kind of, what are you guys building in next? Is it really focused on, for you, building these modules and functionality and just strengthening the overall system? Or do you kind of think about, okay, I guess the modules are features, right? The modules become the features of what people can utilize, but are there things that you intend to expand upon in terms of what people can do with the actual platform that are coming in the future?
Yeah. So currently our main focus was helping teams basically on Ethereum or Polygon or wherever automate their smart contract transactions, smart contract functions within that protocol, right? But now, since the kind of like the start of summer, we saw this transitioning that many projects start deploying on many chains, and different projects are rising here and there. They're all interconnected via these bridges. They're all EVF compatible. And now you got this whole ecosystem of networks with projects and money flowing in and out, and opportunities here, there, and so on, right? And since then, a lot of projects have approached us and asked, like, hey, guys, can you help me automate transactions across these different networks, right? Not only within one, but like from one to another to another. And because like building your own bot, running your own bot on like Ethereum or on Polygon is already like a pretty cumbersome task. But like if you have one or two guys that do it for a long period of time, then you will end up doing it probably okay in most circumstances. But then if you go like across 5 different networks and you want to do that, then you have to have like a whole DevOps team.
Right.
And you
To manage all the infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, doing that. And I'm talking like RPCs, Polygon or Phantom that break down, dynamically switching those. And it's especially at high congestion times, the scale is crazy. And so, and there, like, there's no way they're doing it. They won't be doing it. So there, the value add is really big. And then there comes another level of okay, I want to be this decentralized application and I want to move funds from my users from chain A to chain B. And I want to do it if a condition on chain, if my balance on chain A goes below a certain threshold, then from chain B, please move some money over to my position here, right? But how do you prove that on chain B that state is actually given in that moment in time, right? So that's kind of like an Oracle thing. Like you need some sort of proof that this actually happened, or you need some sort of system that guarantees you that, or that you have a high chance that they are saying the right thing. And this is what we're exploring at the moment. People execute transactions based on stuff that happens on other networks, and doing so with economic guarantees or economic security that these bots that are then doing that trade or executing that transaction do have some stake in Gelato that can be punished if they do it without actually that state being there. And you have multiple people signing off. So yeah, this is something that we are exploring next, still in the works, and it takes some time. But I think there's a big market for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where we're headed anyway. So if you guys can be the initial nuts and bolts infrastructure, people experimenting with that, then you've got a path to being kind of the layer that is allowing people to not only allowing users not to see the different chains as different chains, but also allowing them to automate and do things across. And then more sophisticated institutional traders doing even crazier, bigger things like that. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. I actually, on a personal level, but also I think it's something that the space really needs. And I think that there's power behind what you guys have created. And one of my favorite use of tech, I talk about this all the time. One of my favorite things about tech, I've been in tech for 26 years. And one of my favorite things about tech is finding the things that nobody else sees, right? Finding the ways of using things that haven't been seen before. So, and we see that all the time in this space. People creating applications and concepts around smart contracts or whatever that weren't the original intent of it, or what NFTs are going to end up being, right? I think that your project is completely architected to be that, right? Be one of those things that people are going to find 100,000 use cases that they can utilize the infrastructure for if you guys can keep up with it. Is there anything else you think is important for people to know about Gelato and what you're building and what's coming, or things you see from it that you think people would be excited about?
I think in general, I talked a lot, but yeah, especially if you're a developer, you could definitely go check it out. It could save you a lot of time and work. And as an end user, most of the time you actually don't realize that you're using it, or that your order was filled by Gelato or your loan was refinanced by Gelato. But maybe if you read the docs, so if you check out some you will see it, and probably you'll interface with it at some point. So yeah, we have our socials, so always check them out and say hi to the community. And yeah, that's it.
That's cool. I mean, it's kind of an interesting place to be, building a project where probably thousands and thousands of people are using what you built every day and don't even know it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting perspective to have.
Yeah. Though I must say, like a lot of projects, if you go, for example, to QuickSwap, the leading DEX on Polygon, and you go to limit orders, then they do have this like powered
Oh, nice.
charter at the bottom.
Nice.
And so people actually come to us and say, hey, I'm on QuickSwap. And so we do have that to some extent, but most of the time it's probably like,
Yeah, you definitely need to negotiate that powered by all the time. It'll drive more to you.
we try. We have a nice logo from our designer. Super easy.
That's great. I always ask everybody, what are projects or people in the space that you think are critically important? They may be well known or they may not be very well known, that you have a lot of respect for and that you think people should be thinking about or be aware of.
Oh, there's so many awesome projects and building blocks that I personally use and my company uses every day, at least. Of course, like I'm interacting with everything from a quite technical perspective, but I would say first of all, like Gnosis and the Gnosis Safe multisig. It's probably one of the widely used applications on Ethereum. It doesn't have like it has like nowadays they do some shiny TVL numbers, right? But like it's like there's no business model attached to it right now or something. It's just like a nice interface where you can manage your crypto in a much more secure fashion with your colleagues all over the world. They don't have to know each other. They just have to have like their address stored in there. It's like bank account for it's a bank account for everyone, and it's basically a company. Like Gnosis is basically a company. What is a company? It's just a shared bank account between certain people, and then that bank account is used to get resources and stuff, right? And that's
Right.
basically Gnosis. Like, and DAOs are 99% of DAOs are just a Gnosis safe.
Yeah.
And so like Gnosis safe is crazy, and they are slowly turning into an app store as well. They have this app store feature at the bottom now where you can, through the interface, interact with any debt, but you are on the Gnosis Safe website. So that's crazy. And I think people don't even realize how big it is. For example, I don't go to any chain that don't support Gnosis Safe because all my funds are in the Gnosis Safe.
Nice.
And if you don't support that, then
can't do anything.
My funds are not moving there. Maybe like a couple of like $5,000 or something might move there over with my MetaMask, but not my big funds. They are staying there. And so I think that's crazy important, and sometimes maybe not gets the limelight because no shiny like yield farming things. And and then also just because we work with it every day, like transactions have to be sent, right? And we're using distributed systems here. And at the end of the day, there are like a bunch of small companies, some bigger ones that are running these full nodes, these archive nodes, providing everyone with this RPC endpoint where all the transactions are being funneled through and getting mined. And through at crazy times, you can't imagine how many transactions are being sent there. And they somehow have to deal with it. They have to keep the lights on, basically. Those the nodes, of course the developers of the clients like Geth team, and then the RPC providers, they have to keep the lights on. Without them, the lights will go off and nothing will happen.
So we're all done.
Lots of appreciation there.
Yeah, I agree. It's also a little scary, that piece of it, right? It's like, I wish we could decentralize that a bit more, but I'm certainly grateful for those that are doing it. It's crazy. I'm editing an episode right now with Felix Leupold at Gnosis. And we talked about one of the things I emphasized. I said, I don't think people really understand how critical Gnosis is to the entire DeFi ecosystem, right? I mean, every treasury, every DAO, all of the projects that you're investing in, almost all of them are probably using Gnosis Safe, right? And then you start climbing into everything that they also do. I'm a big fan of CowSwap, and I think that whole MEV protection model that they've built there is fascinating. So I totally agree with you on Gnosis. I think that's
and also like Alan Liu, he used to work at Gnosis, crazy good developer. He taught me my first assembly.
Nice.
And he actually invented the AMM model,
right?
Before Uniswap, before everyone, was basically him and Gnosis doing it. And it was just too early, I guess. But they it kind of like came up.
We talked about that in my interview with Felix, and he said that to me, and I said, "What? Wait a minute." And what he told me was, he said that they actually punted on launching the AMM, which they came up with it because of their prediction network. They punted on launching it because they were worried about meth. They were worried about front running. And so they didn't do anything with it because they wanted to solve that problem first. And then in the meantime, other people came up similarly with the concept and launched Uniswap and everything else around the concept. But CowSwap is the end result of them saying, we can't launch this yet because of front running and MEV, right? So I'm not like just sitting here listening. I like just before I got on with you, I was listening to that part of the interview where he said that to me, and I was like, that's incredible, right? It's like, it's amazing. That's an amazing team over there. They're doing really cool stuff.
And also the support for the community in general. They take over the parity client, and they funded broad. Like we were funded initially by them, right? It was in the midst of the debt market, and we need some money to finance ourselves, right? To code on Gelato, and they literally just gave us money to work on that, even though it's we made it a bit Gnosis Safe specific at the time, but we did like a general thing, and they supported us financially, and also were one of our investors in the seed round. So they did that with many projects, right? So they do support and grow the Ethereum pie for everyone, which is really great.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people don't realize about what's really happening here in DeFi, right? There's a lot of things to pick at and get angry about or worry about. And I don't think people really fully appreciate how much members of the community that are really serious about this are actually helping each other, and I'm sure for you, it'll be the same thing. As you guys grow, there will be opportunities for Gelato to help other projects grow using Gelato or not using Gelato just because you think they're important to the ecosystem. And I don't think people fully appreciate how much that happens. So that's really cool that you went through that and talked about how they helped you and have helped others. What's the best way for people to use Gelato, get involved with you guys, find you? How should they connect?
Yeah, so just go to one of your favorite applications on Ethereum, Polygon, Phantom, and chances are quite high if you are using Gelato in two ways. If you're on Phantom, go to Spooky Swap or Spirit Swap and place some limit orders. On Polygon, go to Furukumbo to get, I think, 100% APY and auto recompounding powered by for Gelato, or on QuickSwap. On mainnet, go to instadapp. You can now go, since today, you can go to MakerDAO's Oasis dashboard and wrap your DAI in USDC in a position and get auto recompounding on Uniswap v3 with Gelato. So there are different ways of how to engage, but most importantly, come to our community chat on Telegram or Discord, say hi. And we have a forum at gelato.network. If you have a cool idea how to use it, just post it there and we will discuss it there, and maybe we'll hack something together. Who knows? So yeah, just say hi.
Very cool. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. This was an enlightening conversation. I'm excited about what you guys are doing.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
Hilmar Orth and the team at Gelato, who are part of hundreds, literally hundreds of projects out there that are building the infrastructure that powers tons of underlying operations and smart contracts that none of us ever see. And they're giving back to the community just like they were given to by projects like Gnosis. This is an exciting time in DeFi, and it's these kinds of collaborations, these kinds of tools that allow people to build with Legos the nuts and bolts of new applications in the space that nobody's thought of before, that makes DeFi so powerful and so unique. I hope you enjoyed what you learned about Gelato. If you liked the show, please rate us, review us, share us on Twitter, let your friends know, subscribe. We're trying to spread financial freedom by letting people know about the innovation in this space. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.